The father of the baby is not me. It's my best friend.
The baby monitor crackled to life at 11:47 p.m., and I heard my wife's fake laugh echoing through our bedroom speakers. That wasn't her real laugh, the one I'd fallen in love with 15 years ago. This was her corporate laugh, the one she used when schmoozing clients or pretending to find her boss's jokes funny. I was hunched over my laptop in the home office, debugging network issues for tomorrow's client meeting, when Hannah's voice drifted down from upstairs. She was supposed to be asleep. We'd argued earlier about her sister's upcoming wedding, and she'd stormed off to bed around 9. "Eddie's such a pushover," Hannah's voice came through crystal clear. "He just sits there and takes it when your sister treats him like garbage." My fingers froze over the keyboard. She was talking about me, to someone, at nearly midnight. A man's voice responded, low and familiar. "Mark's always been like that with family. Remember high school? He'd let anyone walk all over him." Wait, that voice belonged to Mark Daniels, my oldest friend since sophomore year. The guy who'd been my best man. The same Mark who'd been coming around more often lately. Always with some excuse about needing to borrow tools or wanting to catch the game. I crept up the stairs, each step deliberate and silent. The hardwood creaked under the third step, and I paused, holding my breath. Their conversation continued. "At least he's predictable," Hannah said. "Never questions anything, never fights back. Makes this so much easier." "You sure he won't suspect anything?" Mark asked. "Please. Eddie couldn't find a clue if it was tattooed on his forehead. Besides, he's been working so much lately he barely notices I exist." My heart hammered against my ribs as I reached the top of the stairs. Our bedroom door was cracked open, yellow light spilling into the hallway. I could see shadows moving inside. "What if he finds out about the pregnancy?" Mark's voice was closer now, almost whispering. Pregnancy. Hannah and I had been trying for a second child for 2 years. She'd told me last week that her period was late, but the home test came back negative. "He won't," Hannah replied. "And even if he does, he'll assume it's his. Men are idiots that way." I pushed the door open wider and stepped inside. Hannah was sitting on our bed in her silk nightgown, the one I'd bought her for our anniversary. Mark stood by the window, shirtless, his clothes scattered across my side of the bed. They both turned toward me. Hannah's face showed no shame, no surprise, just mild irritation, like I'd interrupted a business meeting. "Oh, great," she said, rolling her eyes. "How long have you been lurking out there?" Mark smirked, crossing his arms over his chest. "Don't be a drama queen, Eddie. We're just talking." "Talking?" I looked at his shirt draped over my favorite reading chair, at Hannah's disheveled hair, at the wine glasses on both nightstands. "That's what we're calling it." Hannah stood up, smoothing down her nightgown. "Look, this doesn't have to be a big deal. Mark and I have been seeing each other for a few months. It's not serious." "Not serious?" My voice cracked like a teenager's. "It's just physical, Eddie. Stress relief. You've been so busy with work, and Mark was there when I needed someone to talk to." She shrugged. One thing led to another. Mark stepped forward, his expression almost pitying. "Come on, man. We're all adults here. Hannah and I have history. We dated briefly before you two got together. This is just unfinished business." "Unfinished business." I repeated the words, tasting how bitter they sounded. "In my house, in my bed." "Technically, it's our house," Hannah corrected. "My name's on the mortgage, too." The casual cruelty of that statement hit me like a physical blow. I stood there for a long moment, looking at these two people I'd trusted most in the world, trying to process what was happening. "So what now?" I asked finally. Hannah exchanged a glance with Mark. "Now you go sleep in the guest room, and we'll talk about this tomorrow when everyone's had time to cool down." "You want me to leave so you can continue talking?" "Don't be dramatic," Mark said. "It's not like we're planning to run away together. This is just a temporary arrangement until Hannah figures out what she wants." I looked at my wife. Really looked at her. When had she become this stranger? When had her eyes turned so cold? "Fine," I said quietly. "I'll go." I turned and walked out, closing the door behind me. As I headed downstairs, I heard Hannah's voice again, muffled but audible. "See? I told you he wouldn't make a scene." Mark's laughter followed me all the way to the guest room. I sat on the narrow bed, staring at the wall, my mind racing. 15 years of marriage. And this was how it ended? Not with a fight or even a conversation, but with me being dismissed like an inconvenient employee. My phone buzzed. A text from Hannah. "We'll talk tomorrow. Don't do anything stupid. I almost laughed. Stupid? Like trusting my wife and best friend? Like believing the woman I loved when she said she wanted to work on our marriage? No, I thought, setting the phone aside. Stupid would be letting them get away with this. I opened my laptop and began typing, documenting everything I could remember about the past few months. Hannah's late nights at work, Mark's frequent visits, the way they'd exchanged glances at Sophie's birthday party last month. The pregnancy comment echoed in my head. If Hannah was pregnant and she was sleeping with Mark, then whose child was it? I spent the rest of the night making notes, taking screenshots of text messages, and planning my next moves. By dawn, I had the beginning of a strategy. Hannah and Mark thought I was a pushover. They were about to learn how wrong they were. The next morning, Hannah acted like nothing had happened. She made coffee, kissed my cheek, and asked if I could pick up Sophie from soccer practice. About last night, I started. Let's not rehash it, she interrupted, straightening her blazer. I'm late for work. We'll talk tonight. She grabbed her purse and headed for the door, then paused. Oh, and Eddie, Mark's coming over later to help fix the deck stairs. Try to be civil. Civil. She wanted me to be civil to the man screwing my wife in my own bed. Of course, I said. Wouldn't want to be rude. After she left, I called in sick to work and drove to Knockout Fitness, a boxing gym downtown where I'd been working out for the past year. The owner, Big Dan Morrison, was a former heavyweight who'd taken me under his wing after I'd mentioned going through a rough patch. Dan was wrapping his hands when I walked in, preparing for his morning workout with the heavy bag. You look like heck, he said without looking up. Wife troubles? Something like that. I pulled on my gloves, needing to hit something. What would you do if you found your wife cheating? Dan paused in his wrapping. Depends. You want to get even, or you want to get over it? Even. He grinned, showing a gold tooth. Then you don't get mad. You get creative, hit 'em where it hurts most. For most people, that's their reputation, their money, or their pride. I spent 2 hours pounding the heavy bag, working out my frustration, while Dan offered commentary and advice. By the time I left, I had the outline of a plan. First stop, a lawyer's office. I met with Janet Pierce, a divorce attorney recommended by a coworker. She was sharp, professional, and ruthless, exactly what I needed. How long has the affair been going on? She asked, taking notes. A few months, maybe longer. She mentioned a pregnancy last night. Janet's eyebrows rose. Is the child yours? Unknown. We've been trying for 2 years with no success. We'll need a paternity test. In the meantime, I want you to document everything. Photos, text messages, credit card statements, anything that proves the affair. I left her office with a list of tasks and a renewed sense of purpose. Hannah thought I was predictable. Time to show her how wrong she was. My next stop was an electronics store where I bought a small security camera system. I installed one camera in the living room, hidden behind some books, and another in the bedroom, tucked inside an old alarm clock. That afternoon, I picked up Sophie from school. My 17-year-old daughter was scrolling through her phone when she got in the car, barely acknowledging my presence. How was school? I asked. Fine. She didn't look up from her screen. Mom says you and she are having problems. My hands tightened on the steering wheel. What else did she say? That you're being dramatic about something stupid. Are you guys getting divorced? The casual way she asked the question, like she was inquiring about dinner plans, made my chest ache. I don't know, sweetheart. We're working through some issues. Sophie finally looked at me. Is it because of Uncle Mark? Uncle Mark. That's what we taught her to call him, back when he was actually my friend. Why would you ask that? She shrugged. He's been around a lot lately, and Mom gets weird when his name comes up. Plus, I saw them hugging in the kitchen last week, and it didn't look very uncle-y. Smart kid. Too smart for her own good. Let's just focus on you right now, I said. How are things with school, friends, that boy you mentioned? We spent the drive home talking about normal teenage problems, a refreshing change from the chaos in my head. But when we pulled into the driveway, Mark's truck was already there. Great, Sophie muttered. More awkward family time. I found them in the backyard, supposedly working on the deck stairs. Mark had a beer in his hand and was laughing at something on his phone while Hannah stood close beside him, also holding a beer. Hey, Eddie, Mark called out when he saw me. Just finishing up here. These stairs were a real safety hazard. The stairs had been fine. This was just an excuse for him to be here, to flaunt their relationship in front of me. Thanks, I said evenly. Send me a bill for your time. Mark's smile faltered slightly. Come on, man. We're friends. I don't charge friends. Right. Friends. I looked directly at him. Good friends help each other out. Great friends apparently help themselves. Hannah shot me a warning look. Eddie. What? I'm just appreciating Mark's helpfulness. He's been so helpful lately. The tension in the air was thick enough to cut with a knife. Sophie, sensing the undercurrents, mumbled something about homework and disappeared inside. I should get going, Mark said, suddenly eager to leave. Early meeting tomorrow. He kissed Hannah's cheek, right in front of me, and headed for his truck. See you later, Hannah. Eddie? After he left, Hannah turned on me. What was that about? What about? The passive-aggressive comments. The attitude. I almost laughed. You want to talk about attitude? You're screwing my best friend and you want to lecture me about attitude? Keep your voice down, she hissed, glancing toward the house. Sophie doesn't need to hear this. Then maybe you should have thought about that before you decided to have an affair. Hannah's expression hardened. Fine. You want to do this now? Let's do it. Yes, I'm seeing Mark. Yes, it's been going on for a while. No, I'm not sorry. The bluntness of her admission was like a slap. Why? Because you're boring, Eddie. You come home, you eat dinner, you watch TV, you go to bed. When was the last time we did anything exciting? When was the last time you surprised me? I surprised you with a trip to Napa for our anniversary. That was 2 years ago, and you spent half the time on work calls. I was building my business, for us, for our future. Your business, your future. What about what I want? What do you want, Hannah? She was quiet for a long moment. Then, I want to feel alive again. Mark makes me feel alive. And the pregnancy? Her face went pale. How do you... Never mind. Yes, I'm pregnant. Is it mine? Another long pause. I don't know. The honesty was almost worse than the lies. At least lies showed she cared enough to protect my feelings. So what happens now? I asked. Now we figure out how to move forward. Maybe we can work something out. An arrangement that works for everyone. An arrangement, I stared at her. You mean like sharing you? Don't be crude. I'm being crude. You're pregnant with another man's child and I'm being crude? Hannah sighed like I was being unreasonable. Look, I know this is hard for you to understand, but relationships don't have to be traditional. Plenty of couples have open marriages. Except you didn't ask if I wanted an open marriage. You just opened it. Because I knew you'd say no. The circular logic was maddening. I turned and walked toward the house. Where are you going? She called after me. Inside, to think about our arrangement. That night, while Hannah was at her book club, or so she claimed, I reviewed the footage from the hidden cameras. Sure enough, Mark had been in the house for 3 hours, and they'd spent most of that time in the bedroom. I copied the files to a secure drive and sent them to Janet Pierce. Then I opened a new document on my computer and began typing. Operation Payback, Phase 1. The next few weeks fell into a strange routine. Hannah continued her affair openly, though she tried to be discreet around Sophie. Mark came by regularly, always with some excuse about helping with household projects. And I played the role of the defeated husband, documenting everything while planning my revenge. I opened a separate bank account and began moving money. Not enough to trigger alerts, but enough to ensure I'd have resources when the time came. I also started spreading subtle rumors at the Pit Stop, the sports bar where Mark and I used to watch games with our old crowd. Heard Mark's been having money troubles, I mentioned to Tommy Reeves, the biggest gossip in our friend group. Something about maxing out credit cards on a woman. Tommy's eyes lit up. No kidding. Which woman? Didn't say, but he borrowed $200 from me last week, said he was short on rent. None of it was true, but Tommy would spread the story, and by the time it made its rounds, Mark would have a reputation as a deadbeat. My next target was Paula Martinez, Hannah's best friend and enabler. Paula worked at the same company as Hannah and had been encouraging the affair from the beginning, though she didn't know I knew that. I invited Paula for coffee, playing the role of the confused, hurt husband seeking advice. I just don't understand what I did wrong, I said, stirring my latte with exaggerated sadness. Hannah says I'm boring, that I don't pay enough attention to her. Paula leaned forward, her expression sympathetic. Marriage is hard, Eddie. Sometimes people grow apart. But Mark, my best friend, how long do you think it's been going on? I wouldn't know anything about that. Come on, Paula. You're her best friend. She must have said something. Paula shifted uncomfortably. Even if she had, it wouldn't be my place to. I'm not asking you to betray her confidence. I just want to understand. Did I miss the signs? Was there something I could have done differently? The concerned husband act worked. Paula's resolve crumbled, and she began talking. Not only did she confirm the affair had been going on for 6 months, but she revealed that Hannah had been planning to ask for a divorce after the baby was born. She wants to wait until the paternity is established, Paula said. If it's Mark's baby, she'll leave you. If it's yours, she'll stay? She'll try to work things out, for the child's sake. Perfect. Hannah was hedging her bets, keeping me as a backup plan in case Mark didn't want to play father to another man's child. That evening, I suggested to Hannah that we attend Sophie's school talent show together. As a family, she agreed, probably thinking it would help maintain appearances. The talent show was held in the school auditorium, packed with parents and siblings. Hannah and I sat in the third row, making small talk and pretending everything was normal. Halfway through the show, Mark appeared and slid into the seat next to Hannah. "Sorry I'm late," he whispered, loud enough for several people to hear. Traffic was homicide. He put his arm around Hannah's shoulders, right there in front of everyone. Hannah looked uncomfortable but didn't pull away. I leaned over and whispered, "Interesting seating arrangement." "Mark's here to support Sophie, too," Hannah replied quietly. "He's been part of her life for years. As my friend. Now he's here as what exactly?" Several people in nearby seats were starting to notice the tension. Mrs. Patterson, Sophie's math teacher, kept glancing our way with obvious curiosity. When Sophie took the stage for her piano performance, I stood up and applauded loudly. "That's my daughter!" I called out, drawing attention to our row. Mark shifted uncomfortably, suddenly aware that people were staring. Hannah's face flushed red. After the show, we gathered in the lobby with other parents. I made sure to introduce Mark to people he hadn't met. "This is Mark Daniels," I said to the Hendersons, whose son was in Sophie's grade. "He's been spending a lot of time at our house lately, very helpful with projects." The way I emphasized projects made it clear there was subtext. Mrs. Henderson's eyebrows rose slightly. "How nice," she said. "It's good to have helpful friends." "Oh, Mark's more than helpful," I continued. "He's practically part of the family now. Isn't that right, Hannah?" Hannah looked like she wanted to disappear. "We should get going." As we walked to the parking lot, Mark grabbed my arm. "What the heck was that about?" I looked down at his hand on my arm, then back at his face. "I was being friendly, introducing you to our neighbors. Isn't that what you want? To be part of our community?" "You're making people suspicious." "Suspicious of what? You said this wasn't serious, just unfinished business between old friends." Mark released my arm and stepped back. "You're playing games, Eddie." "Games?" I smiled. "I don't play games, Mark. Remember, I'm boring and predictable." That night, Hannah confronted me in the guest room where I'd been sleeping. "What are you trying to accomplish?" she demanded. "I'm trying to understand my new role in this arrangement. Am I the husband, the roommate, or just the guy who pays the mortgage?" "Don't be ridiculous." "Ridiculous? You're pregnant with another man's child. He's openly affectionate with you in public, and I'm being ridiculous?" Hannah sat down on the bed beside me. For a moment, her expression softened. "Eddie, I know this is hard, but we can make this work if I just what? Pretend it's not happening? Smile and wave while my wife and best friend humiliate me in front of our entire community." "No one's trying to humiliate you." "Then what would you call tonight? Mark putting his arm around you in front of Sophie's teachers, holding your hand during the intermission?" He was being supportive. He was marking his territory. Hannah was quiet for a long moment. Then, "Maybe we should consider a trial separation. Give everyone some space to figure things out." "You want me to move out?" "Just temporarily, until we can work through this like adults." I pretended to consider it. "Well, where would I go?" "You could stay with your brother, or get an apartment. I'd help with the deposit." How generous. She'd help me pay to leave my own home so she could play house with her lover. "I'll think about it," I said. The next morning, I called Janet Pierce and told her about Hannah's suggestion. "Don't move out," she advised. "If you leave voluntarily, it could hurt you in the divorce proceedings. Make her be the one to file papers if she wants you gone. What about the paternity test? We can request one as part of the divorce proceedings, but it would be better if we could get one done privately first. Do you have access to anything with Mark's DNA?" I thought about the coffee cup he'd left on my kitchen counter yesterday morning. "I might get it to me as soon as possible. The sooner we know the truth, the better we can plan our strategy." That afternoon, while Hannah was at work and Sophie was at school, I collected the coffee cup and drove it to the lab Janet had recommended. They said results would take 3 to 5 business days. I spent the rest of the week playing the part of the considering husband, letting Hannah think I was warming up to her separation idea. Meanwhile, I continued my subtle campaign to damage Mark's reputation around town. At the hardware store, I mentioned to the clerk that Mark had borrowed my tools and returned them damaged. At the grocery store, I ran into Mark's ex-girlfriend and casually mentioned that he seemed to be having financial problems. By Friday, the rumors had spread enough that Mark confronted me at the pit stop. "People are saying I'm broke," he said, sliding into the booth across from me. "They're saying I'm mooching off you and Hannah." I looked up from my beer with feigned surprise. "Really? That's weird. I wonder where they got that idea." "Cut the crap, Eddie. You're spreading lies about me." "I'm not spreading anything. If people are talking, maybe you should ask yourself why." Mark leaned forward, his voice low and threatening. "You need to stop this, now." "Or what?" "Or I'll make you stop." I laughed, actually laughed. "You'll make me stop?" "Mark, you're sleeping with my wife in my house, and you're threatening me." Several people in nearby booths turned to look at us. Mark glanced around nervously. "Keep your voice down." "Why? Afraid people will find out what kind of man you really are?" Mark stood up abruptly, his face flushed with anger. "You want to do this here? In front of everyone?" I remained seated, calm and composed. "Do what, Mark? Have a conversation with my oldest friend about why he's destroying my marriage?" The entire bar was watching now. Mark realized he was trapped. Anything he said would only make things worse. "This isn't over," he muttered, and stalked out. Tommy Reeves slid into the booth Mark had vacated. "Dude, what was that about?" I shrugged. "Friend problems, you know how it is." But I could see the speculation in Tommy's eyes, and I knew the story would be all over town by tomorrow. My phone buzzed with a text from Hannah. "Mark says you're causing problems. We need to talk." I typed back, "I'll be home in an hour." The confrontation was coming, and I was ready for it. The paternity test results arrived on a Tuesday morning while Hannah was getting ready for work. I intercepted the mail and opened the envelope in my car, hands shaking slightly as I unfolded the document. The results were exactly what I'd suspected. Mark was the father. I sat in the driveway for several minutes processing the information. 15 years of marriage, and it was ending because my wife had gotten pregnant by my former best friend. The betrayal was complete. But instead of despair, I felt something else. Cold, calculating anger. They'd played me for a fool, but the game wasn't over yet. I drove to Janet Pierce's office and handed her the results. "This changes everything," she said, scanning the document. "With proof of paternity and the affair, we can push for a very favorable settlement. The question is, how do you want to handle this?" "I want them to suffer the way I've suffered. I want everyone to know what they did." Janet raised an eyebrow. "Public humiliation can be satisfying, but it can also backfire. Are you sure that's the route you want to take?" "I'm sure." We spent the next hour planning my strategy. Hannah had been organizing a baby shower for the following weekend, a big event with all her friends, coworkers, and family members. She'd invited everyone except my family, claiming it was too awkward given our marital problems. Perfect. A public venue with everyone who mattered to her in attendance. I spent the week preparing. I had the paternity test results professionally printed and bound, along with a timeline of the affair supported by photos, text messages, and credit card records. I also prepared a brief speech. Nothing too dramatic, just a simple presentation of facts. The baby shower was held at Paula's house, a sprawling suburban palace with a backyard perfect for entertaining. Hannah had spared no expense. Professional decorations, catered food, an elaborate gift table. She was holding court in the center of it all, radiant in a flowing maternity dress, accepting congratulations and gifts from her guests. I arrived an hour into the party, carrying a large wrap box and wearing my best smile. "Eddie!" Paula rushed over, looking flustered. "I didn't expect to see you here." "Wouldn't miss it," I said cheerfully. "This is a big day for Hannah, for all of us." Hannah spotted me from across the yard and made her way over, her expression wary. "What are you doing here?" she asked quietly. "Supporting my wife at her baby shower, isn't that what husbands do?" Mark appeared at her elbow, looking uncomfortable. "Hey, Eddie." "Mark, great to see you, buddy. Isn't this exciting? Hannah's having a baby." The forced joviality in my voice was making everyone nervous. "Good. Maybe we should talk privately," Hannah suggested. Why? This is a celebration. Everyone's here to congratulate you on your pregnancy. I looked around at the assembled guests. Hannah's mother, her sister, co-workers, neighbors, old friends. In fact, I have a few things I'd like to share with everyone. Hannah's face went pale. Eddie, don't what? Don't celebrate this joyous occasion? I walked over to the gift table and set down my wrapped box. I brought something special for everyone to see. Eddie. Mark's voice carried a warning. Think about what you're doing. I'm thinking about how excited everyone will be to learn the truth about this pregnancy. I unwrapped the box slowly, building suspense. Inside were copies of the paternity test results and affair documentation. Enough for every guest. Ladies and gentlemen, I called out, raising my voice to address the entire party. If I could have your attention for just a moment. The conversations died down as people turned to look at me. Hannah was frozen in place, her face white as paper. I want to thank you all for coming to celebrate Hannah's pregnancy. It's such a special time, and I know how important it is for her to have all her friends and family here to share in her joy. I began distributing the documents to the nearest guests. I also wanted to share some exciting news about the baby's paternity. I know there's been some speculation, and I thought it was time to clear things up. Stop! Hannah's voice was barely a whisper. Mrs. Chen, Hannah's elderly neighbor, was the first to open her copy. Her eyes widened as she read. According to the paternity test results you'll find in your packets, I continued, the father of Hannah's baby is Mark Daniels, who many of you know as my former best friend. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Mark started toward me, but I held up a hand. Please, let me finish. The test was conducted 3 weeks ago using samples obtained during Mark's frequent visits to our home over the past 6 months. The affair, which you'll see documented in the timeline provided, began in February and has continued through Hannah's pregnancy. Hannah's mother dropped her champagne glass, the crystal shattering on the patio stones. The credit card records show romantic dinners, hotel stays, and jewelry purchases, all charged to accounts that I've been paying for. I smiled at the stunned faces around me. I thought you should know, since many of you have been asking Hannah about her marriage problems and offering support during this difficult time. You bastard, Mark snarled, finally finding his voice. Actually, Mark, that would be your child. I'm just the guy who's been paying for your affair. Hannah burst into tears and ran into the house. Several of her friends followed, casting accusing glances at both Mark and me. Paula stepped forward, her face flushed with anger. How could you do this to her? At her own baby shower? How could I do this? I laughed. Paula, you've been encouraging this affair from the beginning. You knew about the pregnancy, knew it wasn't mine, and you said nothing. You helped her plan to leave me after the baby was born. Paula's mouth fell open. She hadn't realized I knew about her role in the deception. In fact, I continued, pulling out my phone, I have some interesting text messages between you and Hannah that I think people might find enlightening. I began reading aloud. Paula to Hannah. Just keep Eddie on the hook until you know whose baby it is. If it's Mark's, you can leave guilt-free. If it's Eddie's, you can make him think the affair was a mistake, and he'll forgive you. The remaining guests were staring at Paula in shock. She backed away from me, shaking her head. And my personal favorite, I continued, Hannah to Paula. Eddie's so pathetic. He actually thinks we can all be one big happy family. Mark and I laugh about it every night. That was the breaking point. Hannah's mother marched over to me, her face twisted with rage. How dare you humiliate my daughter like this? Mrs. Wilson, your daughter humiliated herself. I'm just making sure everyone knows the truth. Get out, she hissed. Get out of here right now. Actually, I'm not done yet. I walked back to the gift table and picked up an envelope I'd left there. I have one more surprise. I opened the envelope and pulled out a document. Divorce papers filed this morning. Hannah will be served officially on Monday, but I thought she should know today. I'm asking for full custody of Sophie, half of all marital assets, and spousal support, which seems fair, considering I've been financially supporting her affair for 6 months. The party had completely dissolved into chaos. Some guests were leaving, others were arguing among themselves, and a few were taking pictures with their phones, probably for social media. Mark finally snapped. He charged at me, swinging wildly. I sidestepped easily. All those hours at the boxing gym had paid off, and he crashed into the gift table, sending presents flying everywhere. That's assault, I said calmly, pulling out my phone to record as Mark struggled to get up. In front of 30 witnesses. Security cameras from Paula's house had probably caught the whole thing too. Perfect evidence for the divorce proceedings. Hannah emerged from the house, mascara streaking down her face, and surveyed the destruction of her baby shower. "Are you happy now?" she screamed at me. "Are you satisfied?" "Actually, yes, I am." I pocketed my phone and headed for the gate. "Enjoy explaining this to everyone at work on Monday." As I walked to my car, I could hear the chaos continuing behind me. Voices raised in argument, car doors slamming as guests fled the scene, Hannah sobbing hysterically. My phone was already buzzing with text messages, some from people who'd been at the party, others from friends who'd heard about it secondhand. Word was spreading fast. I drove home to an empty house. Sophie was at a friend's house for the weekend, which was probably for the best. She'd hear about this soon enough, but at least she wouldn't have to witness the immediate aftermath. I poured myself a scotch and sat in my living room, reviewing the events of the afternoon. Had I gone too far? Maybe. Did I regret it? Not for a second. My phone rang. Janet Pierce. "I just heard about the baby shower," she said. "Please tell me you didn't actually do what people are saying you did." Depends what people are saying. That you exposed your wife's affair in front of 50 people and served her divorce papers at her own baby shower. 30 people, and yes. Janet sighed. "Eddie, we talked about this. Public humiliation can backfire in divorce proceedings. Let it backfire. I have documentation of everything, the affair, the pregnancy, the financial deception. Any judge who sees that evidence will understand why I was angry." "What about Sophie? Have you thought about how this will affect her?" That gave me pause. Sophie was the one innocent party in all of this, and she was going to be caught in the crossfire. "I'll handle Sophie," I said. "She deserves to know the truth about what her mother did. Just be careful. This could get ugly fast." After I hung up, I sat in the quiet house and waited. Hannah would come home eventually, and we'd have our final confrontation. But for now, I savored the silence and the knowledge that everyone in town knew exactly what kind of people Hannah and Mark really were. My phone buzzed with another text, this one from Tommy at the pit stop. "Dude, the video is already on Facebook. You're famous." Video? Someone had recorded the baby shower disaster and posted it online. By tomorrow, it would probably have thousands of views. I smiled and raised my scotch in a toast to my empty living room. Here's to new beginnings. The video of the baby shower confrontation went viral locally within 24 hours. By Monday morning, it had been shared across multiple social media platforms, with comments ranging from supportive, good for him, AITA, to critical, he could have handled it privately, to downright vicious attacks on Hannah and Mark. I woke up to 17 missed calls and 43 text messages. The story had apparently made it onto a local radio talk show, and the hosts were asking listeners to call in with their opinions on baby shower gate. Sophie came home Sunday evening, having heard about it from friends whose parents had been at the party. "Dad, what the heck happened?" she asked, dropping her backpack in the hallway. I'd been dreading this conversation, but there was no avoiding it now. "Your mother and I are getting divorced," I said simply. "She's been having an affair with Mark, and the baby she's carrying is his." Sophie stared at me for a long moment, processing the information. "So, that's why you've been sleeping in the guest room, and why Mark's been around so much." She shook her head. "I knew something was weird, but I didn't think... God, Mom's an idiot." "Sophie, no, she is. You're a good dad, a good husband. Why would she throw that away for Uncle Mark?" Sophie's voice cracked slightly. "He's not even that great. He still lives in that crappy apartment and drives a truck that's older than I am." I pulled her into a hug and she started crying, the first real emotion she'd shown about the situation. "I'm sorry you had to find out this way," I said. "I should have told you myself before the party." "Are you and Mom going to fight over custody?" "I don't know yet. That depends on what your mother wants to do." As if summoned by our conversation, Hannah's car pulled into the driveway. Sophie and I separated, and I braced myself for the confrontation I'd been expecting since yesterday. Hannah walked in looking haggard. Her eyes were red and puffy, her hair unwashed, her clothes wrinkled. The confident, put-together woman I'd married was gone, replaced by someone who looked broken and defeated. "Sophie, go to your room," she said quietly. "No." Sophie crossed her arms. "I want to hear this." Hannah looked at me pleadingly. "Please, she doesn't need to be part of this. She's 17, Hannah. She's old enough to understand what's happening to her family." Hannah sank onto the couch, her hands resting on her pregnant belly. Fine. You want to destroy what's left of this family? Go ahead. I didn't destroy anything. You did that when you started sleeping with Mark. You humiliated me in front of everyone I know. My mother won't speak to me. My boss called me into his office this morning because the video is being shared around the company. Paula's not returning my calls. Maybe you should have thought about that before you got pregnant with another man's child. Sophie flinched at the harshness in my voice, but I was past caring about diplomacy. I made a mistake, Hannah said. I was lonely and Mark was there, and it just happened. But did you have to destroy my entire life over it? It just happened? For 6 months? You planned to leave me after the baby was born, Hannah. You were using me as a backup plan in case Mark didn't want to play father. Hannah's face crumpled. I never meant for it to go this far. I was confused and scared, and I didn't know what I wanted. What you wanted was to have your cake and eat it too. Well, congratulations. Now everyone knows what you really are. What I really am? Hannah's sadness was rapidly turning to anger. I'm a woman who made a mistake. But what you did yesterday was cruel and vindictive. You enjoyed destroying me? She wasn't wrong. I had enjoyed it. And I wasn't done yet. Where's Mark? I asked. Shouldn't he be here supporting his baby mama? Hannah's face flushed. Mark and I, we're taking a break. He thinks we should let things cool down before we make any decisions about the future. I almost laughed. He dumped you? After I exposed the affair, he decided you weren't worth the trouble? He didn't dump me. He thinks his reputation is more important than standing by you. Sounds like the Mark I know. Sophie had been listening to this exchange with growing disgust. Mom, how could you be so stupid? Dad's been nothing but good to you, and you threw it away for a guy who won't even stick around when things get tough? You don't understand. I understand perfectly. You're selfish. You wanted excitement, so you decided to screw Dad's best friend. And now that everyone knows what you did, you want Dad to feel sorry for you? Hannah turned to me with desperate eyes. Eddie, please, can't we try to work this out? For Sophie's sake. Work what out? You're carrying another man's child. That man has apparently abandoned you now that the affair is public. What exactly are we supposed to work out? We could try counseling. I could cut off all contact with Mark. We could start over. The pathetic hope in her voice almost made me feel sorry for her. Almost. Hannah, I don't love you anymore. I don't even like you. You're not the woman I married. She started crying again, ugly sobs that shook her whole body. Sophie looked uncomfortable but didn't move to comfort her mother. What happens now? Hannah asked through her tears. Now you find somewhere else to live. The divorce papers give you 30 days to move out. Where am I supposed to go? I'm 7 months pregnant. That's not my problem. Maybe Mark will take you in, or Paula, or your mother. My mother thinks I'm a disgrace. Paula won't return my calls. And Mark, she trailed off. And Mark is a coward who only wanted you when it was convenient. Funny how that works. My phone rang. Janet Pierce. Eddie, we have a problem, she said when I answered. Hannah's hired a lawyer. David Brennan, he's good and he's expensive. They're claiming emotional distress and asking for a restraint order against you. I put the call on speaker so Hannah could hear. On what grounds? The public humiliation at the baby shower. They're saying you deliberately caused her emotional distress that could harm the pregnancy. Hannah was watching me with something like satisfaction in her eyes. She thought she'd found a way to turn the tables. Let them try, I said. I have documentation of everything she did. Any judge who sees that evidence will understand my actions. Maybe, but Brennan is claiming you violated her privacy by obtaining the paternity test without her consent. I used DNA from a coffee cup Mark left in my house. That's not illegal. It's legally gray area. Just be careful. Don't give them any more ammunition. I hung up and looked at Hannah. Really? After everything you've done, you're going to try to paint yourself as the victim? You violated my privacy. You humiliated me in public. You could have caused me to miscarry from the stress. But you didn't miscarry. And the only reason I had to violate your privacy is because you were lying to me about whose baby you're carrying. That doesn't give you the right. It gives me every right, I exploded, my carefully maintained composure finally cracking. You were planning to make me raise another man's child. You were going to let me believe I was the father while you continued your affair. What kind of person does that? Sophie stood up abruptly. I can't listen to this anymore. You're both acting like children. She stormed out of the room and I heard her bedroom door slam. Hannah and I stared at each other in the sudden silence. "Look what we've done to her," Hannah said quietly. "Look what you've done. This is all on you, Hannah. Every bit of it." Hannah struggled to her feet, one hand supporting her back. "I'll start looking for a place tomorrow." "Good." She paused at the bottom of the stairs. "For what it's worth, I'm sorry. I never meant for things to end this way." "But you're not sorry about the affair. You're just sorry you got caught." Hannah didn't deny it. She climbed the stairs slowly, and I heard the bedroom door close. I sat alone in the living room, feeling suddenly exhausted. The adrenaline that had carried me through the past few weeks was wearing off, leaving behind a hollow ache. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "This is Mark. We need to talk." I stared at the message for a long moment, then typed back, "Nothing to talk about. You made your choice when you dumped Hannah." His response came quickly. "I didn't dump her. I'm trying to do the right thing here." The right thing would have been not sleeping with my wife. "Meet me at the pit stop. 1 hour. Just the two of us." I almost said no, but curiosity got the better of me. What could Mark possibly have to say that would matter now? Fine. 1 hour. I spent the next hour wondering if I was walking into some kind of trap. But when I arrived at the pit stop, Mark was sitting alone in a corner booth, looking as haggard as Hannah had. "Thanks for coming," he said as I sat down across from him. "Make it quick. I have nothing to say to you." Mark signaled the waitress for 2 beers, then leaned forward. "I want you to know I never meant for this to happen." "Which part? The affair or getting caught?" "The affair. Hannah and I, we have history, you know that, but I never planned to act on it." "But you did act on it. For 6 months?" Mark nodded miserably. "I know, and I know there's no excuse for that, but Eddie, I need you to understand. I love her." I stared at him. "You love her? Then why did you abandon her when the affair went public?" "I didn't abandon her. I'm trying to figure out how to make this work without destroying everyone involved." Too late for that. The waitress brought our beers. Mark took a long drink before continuing. "Hannah wants to try to work things out with you. She thinks if she ends things with me, you might forgive her." "And what do you think?" "I think she's deluding herself. You're never going to forgive her, are you?" He was right, and we both knew it. "So what do you want from me?" I asked. "I want you to let her go. Stop fighting the divorce. Don't drag this out in court. Let her move on with her life." "Her life with you?" Mark was quiet for a long moment. "I don't know. Maybe. The baby is mine, and I want to do right by both of them. But this whole situation is so screwed up. You're having second thoughts, wouldn't you? Everyone in town knows what we did. Hannah's career is probably over. My business is suffering because people don't want to work with a homewrecker. And you?" He looked at me with something like admiration. "You played this perfectly. You destroyed both of us without breaking any laws." "You destroyed yourselves. I just made sure everyone knew about it." Mark finished his beer and stood up. "For what it's worth, I'm sorry. You deserve better from both of us." He left money on the table and walked out, leaving me alone with my thoughts. 3 hours later, I was back home when my phone rang. It was the hospital. "Mr. Grant, this is Dr. Martinez at St. Mary A.S. Your wife has been admitted. She's in labor." I almost said she's not my wife anymore, but caught myself. "Is she okay?" "She's fine, but the baby is coming early. She's asking for you." I hung up and stared at the phone. Hannah was having Mark's baby, and she wanted me there? Sophie appeared in the doorway. "Was that about Mom?" "She's in labor at St. Mary S." Sophie grabbed her jacket. "Let's go." "Sophie, you don't have to." "She's still my mother, Dad, and this baby is going to be my half-sibling, whether we like it or not." We drove to the hospital in silence. I found myself wondering what I was doing there. This wasn't my child, and Hannah wasn't really my wife anymore. But some part of me, the part that had loved her for 15 years, couldn't stay away. We found Hannah in the maternity ward, hooked up to monitors and breathing heavily through contractions. She looked up when we walked in, relief flooding her face. "Eddie, thank God you came." "How are you feeling?" "Scared. The baby's coming 6 weeks early. They don't know if—" She couldn't finish the sentence. A nurse bustled in to check her progress. "You're at 7 centimeters. Won't be long now." "Where's Mark?" I asked. Hannah's face crumpled. "He's not coming. He said he couldn't handle seeing me like this." So much for doing the right thing. When the moment of truth arrived, Mark had chosen to run rather than face the consequences of his actions. I'm here, Sophie said, taking her mother's hand. We're both here. The next 2 hours were a blur of medical activity. Despite everything that had happened between us, I found myself holding Hannah's other hand during the worst contractions, coaching her breathing the way I had when Sophie was born. At 11:47 p.m., Hannah gave birth to a son. He was small but healthy, with a full head of dark hair and Mark's distinctive nose. He's beautiful, Hannah whispered, tears streaming down her face as the nurse placed the baby in her arms. I looked down at this child, the product of my wife's betrayal, and felt an unexpected pang of something that might have been grief. In another life, this could have been our son. Our family could have been whole. What are you going to name him? Sophie asked. Hannah looked at me uncertainly. I was thinking, maybe Michael? After my father? I nodded. It was a good name, and it had nothing to do with Mark. Michael Grant, she said softly, then looked at me with hope in her eyes. Unless you want his last name to be different. He's your son, Hannah. You decide. The hope in her eyes died, and she turned her attention back to the baby. A few minutes later, Mark burst into the room, looking frantic and out of breath. I'm sorry I'm late. Traffic was... He stopped short when he saw me holding Sophie's hand beside Hannah's bed. He's here, Hannah said simply, adjusting the blanket around the baby. Mark approached cautiously, his eyes fixed on his son. When he reached the bed, his expression softened completely. He's perfect, he breathed. Do you want to hold him? Hannah asked. Mark looked at me as if asking permission. I shrugged. It wasn't my place to give or withhold permission anymore. Mark took the baby carefully, and I watched his face transform. Whatever doubts he'd had about becoming a father vanished in that moment. Hey there, little guy, he whispered. I'm your dad. The word dad hit me like a physical blow. This man, my former best friend, was now the father of my wife's child. The geometry of betrayal was complete. I stood up. I should go. Eddie, wait, Hannah called out. I paused at the door. Congratulations, both of you. I walked out of the hospital and sat in my car for a long time, watching the windows of the maternity ward and thinking about the family I'd lost and the life I'd have to build without them. My phone buzzed with a text from Janet Pierce. Heard about the baby. How are you holding up? I typed back, it's over, really over. Want to talk? Tomorrow. Tonight, I just want to go home. I drove through the empty streets of our small town, past the pit stop where Mark and I used to watch games, past the school where Sophie had performed in the talent show, past all the places that held memories of the life I'd thought I was living. When I got home, the house felt different. Not like a home anymore, but like a place I was visiting. Soon, Hannah and the baby would be gone, and Sophie would split her time between two households. The life I'd built over 15 years was officially over, but as I sat in my living room with a glass of scotch, I realized I wasn't devastated anymore. The worst had happened, and I'd survived it. More than survived it. I'd won. Hannah's reputation was destroyed. Mark's business was suffering. Their relationship was strained by the public exposure of their affair, and I was free to start over, older and wiser and no longer naive about the people I trusted. My phone rang one last time. Hannah. Eddie, I just wanted to say thank you for being there tonight. You're welcome. I know things between us are over, but I hope someday we can be friends again, for Sophie's sake. I thought about that. Could I ever be friends with the woman who'd betrayed me so completely? Could I sit across from her at Sophie's graduation, her wedding, future grandchildren's birthday parties? Maybe, I said. Someday, but not now. I understand. Her voice was small and tired. Eddie, I really am sorry for all of it. I know you are, Hannah, but sorry doesn't fix what's broken. After I hung up, I finished my scotch and went to bed in the guest room one last time. Tomorrow, I'd start sleeping in the master bedroom again. Tomorrow, I'd start building a new life. But tonight, I allowed myself to grieve for the family that might have been and to feel satisfied that justice had been served. The baby shower video was still circulating online, ensuring that everyone in town knew exactly what Hannah and Mark had done. They'd have to live with the consequences of their choices for years to come. As for me, I was done being the victim in this story. From now on, I was the man who'd refused to be played for a fool, the man who'd fought back and won.